Your ID is your legal avatar. It's an unusual concept, and it comes because we're not living our lives anymore, most of us, as natural human beings. We're not natural persons. We are corporations. We're kind of bipedal corporations, and we have and that is a kind of a construct of different agreements and commercial operations of government and big corporations and even international organizations, and that gives us an ID, and it is a corporate way of identifying us. If you don't have an ID, you are in fact invisible. You're invisible to whom? Well, I would suggest you're invisible to government and to marketers and business. They can see you only through your ID, which is your thing that you're trying to protect, right? That's why you have ways of protecting your ID, protecting this legal creation, this artifice that kind of walks parallel to you and is the way by which you are made visible. And if you have an ID, well, think of all the wonderful benefits that you can share in our modern debt-based, credit-based economy. You can have a credit card. You can enter into public school. You can file tax returns. You can obtain benefits, Social Security benefits, Medicare benefits, Medicaid benefits. You can get a college loan so that you, at the end of your time at the university, will be saddled with $65,000 in debt that maybe the taxpayers will pay for. You have the privilege of doing that and having that only because you have this thing called the ID. So you have an interest, even though it's not you in a way, you still have something of an interest, maybe even a legal interest in protecting it and keeping entities, parties, groups, individuals, and con men from using it to their own advantage, because that's what they do. They will put your ID in the place of some other party making a purchase, often by credit, and suddenly there's a record somewhere in a police blotter that says the David Tulis Show listener has bought $900 worth of underwear and high-priced chocolates from a Walmart in Bismarck, North Dakota. Okay, and so you're now saddled with that. There's a criminal charge floating around, and there may be even a warrant out for your arrest because you bought that underwear and that chocolate, and of course it wasn't you, right? Someone was using your legal ID. So to answer some of these questions about what to do about this threat is Mark Jones. He is with Legal Shield and has an interest in telling you about ID Shield, which is a product of that business. First of all, Mark, what is Legal Shield in general? How does that work as a business model? What are you selling?
Basically, what we provide, David, is Legal Shield provides affordable legal services and identity theft protection for individuals, families, small business owners. We also go into companies and make the services available for your employees. Legal Shield provides just advice and consultation, review contracts and documents on your behalf, do things like prepare your will, living will, healthcare power of attorney, or update those documents if they need to be updated, write letters, make telephone calls. Basically, what we do is we protect and empower people.
And is that like buying insurance? Is it something like insurance?
It's similar to insurance. But the thing about this product is that we want you to use it. We want you to utilize the services where in most cases, insurance, something bad has to happen before you can use the services.
Well, so Legal Shield operates generally, Mark Jones, by a subscription, right? My
That's
listener,
right.
if he's one of your clients, he pays a subscription. Well, what kind of subscription does he pay? What are the different levels? How big a policy, if you will, or how small a policy can he obtain?
Basically, we have for individuals and families, employees, we have an individual policy, which starts as little as $17.95, and then we have a family
daily.
No, that's monthly.
Monthly.
That's a monthly subscription. And then on our family plan, it's only $19.95 a month to cover a family. Family consists of the member, the spouse, or significant other, children up to the age of 26, whether they live in the home or full-time college students. So we can cover the entire family for that same small monthly subscription.
Okay, well, tell a little bit more about the kinds of services that your subscribers have. What are some examples locally of some of your clients? What have they done obtaining through Legal Shield these benefits?
Well, we had one client that had a situation with his mortgage, And so he was able to talk to Legal Shield. Legal Shield was able to review the contracts and documents and then tell him and advise him what he could do when he talked to the mortgage lender. So not only do we assist our clients, but we can review those contracts and documents and give our members or give our people opportunities to have access to the system and know what to do when they go.
And hopefully you would say my listener doesn't have legal problems, hasn't had legal problems in 15 years, has never even dreamed that he would need to consult an attorney. But when it happens, and suddenly you need to have advice. Right?
Absolutely. I look at it like this now. It's almost important to have an attorney as it is to have a doctor in today's society.
Well, now ID Shield is a new part of your business, Mark. You've been involved in Legal Shield for at least a decade in the area, right? How long have you been? 17 years. 17 years, and you're the local.
I am the regional manager.
The regional manager
for Legal Shield in this market.
And now what is the new thing is ID Shield? Talk about that.
Yeah, ID Shield partnered with a company called Kroll about 14 years ago. And Kroll is the #1 risk consulting company in the world. And what they saw several years ago were individuals and families were becoming victims of identity theft. Well, at that time, there was nowhere to turn to get advice. So Kroll came out with a product, and what the product does is it gives our members access to licensed investigators or private investigators for consultation, review, and also what we do with the investigators is that any type of consultation you need, well, we're going to provide that. If any of our members become a victim of identity theft, we do what you call restoration. We'll allow you to rest, David, while our investigators restore you back to pre-theft status. That's huge.
And how is that work done?
That work is done actually through private investigators, and they work through the repositories. Go out and do the work. What we have is a
what do you mean, go out and do the work? What does that entail?
That entails that the investigators are going out and doing the research. They're finding out what happened, where it happened, and they're tracking it down and straightening it up for you.
So let's say in Bismarck, South Dakota, someone did use a credit card that had your somehow had my listener's identification on it, or he had duplicate card that had the right chip configuration, and he made a $900 purchase far away from here. What does the investigator say? Contact the manager of that store and say, "Well, I would like you to provide me, since we're dealing with an ID theft case here, provide me with the video of that transaction."
Absolutely, that's kind of
which is police work, sort of.
Yes, so that's what they actually do. It's a private event. They go out and do all the legwork while you're able to stay at home and not worry about it. And so with that, the investigators, their goal is to do whatever it takes for as long as it takes to restore our members back to the way they were. We offer a $5 million service guarantee, so we're going to spend a lot of time actually restoring our members. That's the whole purpose of what we do. There's a lot of other companies out there that does other things, but we do restoration, which is probably one of the most important things you can have done.
Well, what are some things that my listener can do on his own, Mark Jones of Legal Shield, apart from engaging your company? What are some basic good sense steps he can make?
Some basic good sense steps is to check your statements on a monthly basis. You want to make sure everything is yours. Sometimes a criminal or someone will charge like a $4.95 item just to see if you're monitoring those statements. The other thing is, if you don't check those statements after 60 days, legally it can be your bill. So that's the other thing you want to check. You want to check your statements. You want to check your
that'd be checking account statements, credit card statements.
Absolutely. You want to also check your credit file, your credit records, where you want to actually get a free credit report from each repository. So I recommend you do it once a quarter.
What are the repositories?
The repositories are Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. And we just had a serious situation with Equifax, but they lost 145 million people's information.
This is David Tulis, and calling you live with Mark Jones. What's on your mind?
Well, this recently happened to me, and I have a question for you regarding dealing with, and it's a nightmare. Yes. I had one time $3,000 in pesos stolen years ago, and people have to realize the banks don't give you any information, the police don't give you any information. You're in the dark. The most you'll get out of the bank is if they determine it wasn't authorized, they'll put the money back, but you're in the dark, and no one's there to help. And I've never used your company. I'm not a shill call. But here's what happened to me last month. $259 was taken out of my account, allegedly by Facebook. And I called the bank, Tennessee Valley Federal Credit Union, and not them, but they connected me to a credit card company. And I said, this was not authorized by me. I didn't authorize them to take $259 out of my personal account. I didn't contract for this. Well, I eventually got connected with the credit card company who wanted me to sign an affidavit that it was fraud. I said, how can I do that? Fraud denotes intent. I don't know if somebody hit the wrong key. I can't say it was fraudulent. I'm not a cop. I'm not a judge or jury, but it was unauthorized. Well, you have to call the credit card company. You can't call Facebook. And what I did, it was a shield company in India. So in the meantime, I said, I am not going to sign an affidavit saying it was fraud because that's a conclusion of law and fact. But I can say it's unauthorized. You know what they did 10 days later? They took $259 out of my bank account. So I want to know, does your company resolve these kind of situations whereby, you know, the credit card company wants you to say it was fraud? I don't know that it's fraud.
Our company does resolve those type of situations. You know, you don't know if it was fraud or not fraud, but your money is gone.
It was unauthorized. So how do you handle that? I'll give you an example. The electric company didn't credit me because they accidentally hit the wrong number. And I called them and they fixed it. It wasn't fraud. They just used my money on somebody else's account. It was a mistake. So what happens if this happens? If I call you and say, Facebook is attempting to take $259 out of my bank account, I didn't authorize it. What do you do? I'll listen on the air. Thank you.
All right. Our company actually does the research. They actually go through to find out. Once you give them the information, they're going to go to Facebook to find out what happened. So if it was a wrong key, then Facebook can fix it. But if it was unauthorized, then they're going to want you to go ahead and say, I'm going to press charges. If that's what happened. If Facebook said it wasn't a wrong key, then someone may have your information to do this.
We do thank you for calling. This is David Tulis. We're at 92.7 FM and 95.3 HD4. And Mark Jones of Legal Shield telling us about ID Shield. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Yes, sir.
This is David Tulis, and we are glad that you're tuning in to the David Tulis Show. We're covering local economy, the free market in Chattanooga and beyond. The argument is love your neighbor and buy local. And we're glad that you think somewhat as I do in the provincial way. We are provincialists, and we're thinking that Chattanooga is the center of the universe. And I know it's a whimsical concept, but I argue that near is better than far, that small is better than big, and that simple is better than complex. And in the footnotes down at well, maybe, is it 5-point type or is it 7-point type? Let's just say it's 7-point type, because you, my listener, are wearing reader glasses and you have a little bit of strain. So I'll increase the type size. At 7-point type, again, sans serif, I argue that personal is better than corporate and that physical is better than abstract. And we are live on Facebook. Just by the way, on Facebook, it's the Nooga Radio on Facebook. Please do like us there. Do like us there. And also we're on YouTube at the Hot News Talk Radio channel. And we were just talking with Mark Jones of Legal Shield, and I want to give you his number. His number is 227-5572. That's 227-5572, and it's Legal Shield. If you just Google Legal Shield Chattanooga, you'll find his name and number there. That's Legal Shield, providing a good service. If something that you're concerned about, not very expensive. A family plan is about just under $20 a month for protection of legal problems. There are lawyers that'll be there to help you. And if you have an ID theft, with the Legal Shield's ID Shield plan, there are benefits there as well. Now we're talking earlier. Well, we were talking earlier about the question of stormwater regulations, and it's a deep and you might say a dark subject. There is an expert in Chattanooga that deals with these kinds of questions a great deal. A man who ran for mayor in the last round, Chris Long. And I must say that we are a competing media platform in Chattanooga, or should I say, press platform. And Chris Long, I think, got probably more type from me than from the big shots in town. And also, we did publish for the benefit of the informed reader in Chattanooga, the man who matters, his proposal. He had a detailed proposal for things that he thinks would be good for the mayor to consider, and that was part of his platform. So it wasn't just a platform; it was something I think that came from his long reading in some of these arcane codes and statutes and ordinances. So we want to ask Chris Long about the stormwater discussion. There was there's a report that I'm looking at in Chattanooga.com that mentions the comments of several people who spoke. They were given, the story says, 5 minutes to say something about whether the 1.6 inch deep water requirement be lowered. Everybody seems to have been for that, including Bill Raines. The realtor Bill Penny spoke for the Home Builders Association, said that the lower water retention level would be fine. It does not mean, the story says, that flood control measures will not still be in place. Paula Palmer, realtor, said something in the same direction. She said that costs are higher when the level of retention depth, water depth, is 1.6 inches rather than a lower level. Engineer Mike Price also is quoted in the story. He says the city will be environmentally conscious even with a 1 inch requirement. In other words, more water can run off into the creeks than under the current plan. The county's level is 3/4 of an inch, so it's about more than an inch less deep water retention requirement. And Helen Burns Sharp also is quoted. She's not quoted, but she's identified in the story as having been there, and she says no reason was given by city officials for pushing for the change. So Chris Long, glad to see. What does my listener need to consider in this whole? What is the short form of this debate? What's it about?
Well, what it's about is something that we need to be complying with the federal guidelines that we have not been able to meet. It's the reason why we're in the trouble that we're in. But what's happened is our state permit, there's nothing in the state permit that says about controlling flooding. And that's where this thing's kind of getting all mixed up and jumbled up. There's nothing about flood control in there. Okay.
Is that the Chattanooga federal permit? And what is the permit about?
That's the federal permit plus our state permit that we have to follow and go by. And that's the regulation. So what we did is our state permit only requires for 1 inch. Okay. So, but locally here, we bumped it up to 1.6. And the reason for that is they wanted to impose mitigation onto our permit.
They being whom?
The city of Chattanooga.
Well, what does that mean? What, the city is the mayor's office, or?
It's the mayor's office. Okay. Wanted to pose a mitigation fee. And how that works is if you take and buy a 1 acre site near the South Chickamauga Creek, which you have to be in a 1.6 inch rain event, that's what the regulations state that you have to design for. Your mitigation fee would be $277,000, a one-time fee. So basically, that's done by the square footage of an acre, like 46,000 square feet, and you multiply it by 1.6. Don't
now. What interest does Mayor Burke have in having the higher level? How does he? Let's look at it from his perspective. How does he view there being a benefit in having a 1.6 inch deep rainfall event rather than 1 inch? What's the benefit that requires the pain of that payment, which of course raises the price of anything built on that lot?
Well, I think
what's his rationale?
I think what's happened is they have discovered this by mistake. They had good intentions when they first started this by putting this in. They wanted to go with the NGO down in the South Chick, which is environmental agency over there. And they was encouraging the 1.6 for the crayfish because they said it was flooding out over there and it's endangering the fish and all this stuff. But this has been going an ongoing problem before we even settled here.
So you're saying the mayor's office, Chris Long, you're an architectural consultant. You're saying that the city, the mayor's office wanted to have a higher level to protect crayfish in Chickamauga Creek?
Right. And what happened is when they put these mitigation fees and they exempt downtown. Downtown just went through the roof under development. So they don't want to ease back up on this. And basically what it's doing is it's starving the outlying areas of the city.
So because downtown is exempted from this fee, developers are piling in, right?
Right.
In other areas not downtown, you're saying this fee applies. And is the $277,000 fee, the mitigation fee, a one-time fee? Is that per acre?
Yes. So if you have a 10-acre site,
right?
You have a 10-acre site, you're looking at $2.7 million.
Has anybody paid that in the past 5 or 6 years, Chris Long?
Nope.
We
haven't done one thing on
so
that.
There's no subdividing and then no building,
right,
on account of that fee.
The only way you can get around it is people have to retrofit.
Well, isn't there some UN goal that's being gratified and satisfied by having people piling into the center of towns? Isn't there something about
it was originally
global planning ideals that have you empty the countryside and fill up the cities?
Yeah, it's to get rid of the urban sprawl. They want everybody contained. They want you riding on a bus. They want you, bike riding. That's where all of our bike trails and all the stuff that's coming up the city, it's getting to be a hassle. They want, that stuff's kind of cool, but it's not for everybody.
Thinning out outlying areas and intensifying and making more dense the inner city areas.
Right.
That seems like a long process if you're going by fees. I mean, it's
right.
But
and we're not addressing our sewer problem for the Moccasin Bend.
Okay, well, just back up. That's another. You're changing the subject here, Chris Long. So
it's all linked together.
Okay, well, I know they're all linked together, but just let me just clarify. I'm trying to ask the question to you that my listener would ask. Okay, so stormwater. The debate yesterday before the city council was: should we lower the level from 1.6-inch rain event to that the property can handle that and avoid runoff to a 1-inch rain event, which in other words is if you have a 1.6-inch rain event and your lots are for 1 inch, you'll have runoff that water goes to the creek. Okay, so that people spoke yesterday. They said yes. Do you say yes? What's your position? Yes or no on
my position is to hold off on passing this bill that they're wanting to do.
Why?
To do further study on it because of possible environmental impacts that I've discovered.
What are those?
Well, over the history of this program since being in 91, I have a creek it's an impaired creek that's behind my house over on Jenkins Road. It's called Mackey Branch. Everybody's familiar with it. So, at any rate, my creek used to flood all the time when I was a kid. Used to have fun out there playing in it. I used to have a boogie board and I'd boogie board on it and have a good time. But my creek don't overflow no more. And we had an abundance of crayfish there. So the crayfish is no longer around. They have left because the creeks don't flood no more. It's because of development. And development is choking off our creeks because of these strict stormwater regulations.
Okay, so we're getting to the details here from Chris Long, architectural consultant, and we'll be right back. We've got some important messages here. This is David Tulis. We argue for local economy and the free markets, brought to you by Nooganomics.com, the website, the man who matters. Again, Nooganomics.com. Do subscribe. No charge, absolutely no charge. It's free. David Tulis, Nooga Radio.
The Tennessee Valley's news talk leader, Nooga Radio, Digital FM 90.